Sometimes I talk to patients and they just mumble the entire time. And I'm like, all right, we're not having a conversation because I can't hear you. Um, Not a ton. It's usually just like we're trying to have a conversation about nothing and like trying to build rapport. And it's just not happening because we're just not able to hear each other. This mostly happens with old patients. I talk
From
about
where
the
I was living in
weather
France,
and how
I
the day
traveled
is
a lot of
going.
places by myself.
I think I
friends
say,
there.
how have you been dealing with all this COVID stuff with every single patient?
Yeah.
Yes.
And then since then, I've sort of like a little bit addicted to it, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe because I don't know. When I had my year abroad and I was alone all the time, when I was traveling alone, it felt like such an intimate experience of the world. It was just me and no one else. Like me and the whole world. And yeah, sometimes it was like literally all I would do is just walk around and go to like museums and art galleries, spend way too much time there, get my brain way too full of stuff, and then go to cafes. So I ended up like overstimulated and over caffeinated. And like really alone.
Mostly it was like the playing of roles that made me feel lonely. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, quite a few times. I like to go camping by myself, which is fun. I mean, don't get me wrong, love the group thing too, but sometimes it's nice to like take a week and just go out on your own, and you don't have to talk or listen or anything. You're just kind of like stuck with yourself. And yeah. But yeah, and I like to take like just random road trips, and I'll spend the whole day just driving somewhere. Just
and I got out of the train station, and I didn't have, my French is non-existent, right? So I get out there. There's nothing.
Really
there's no English. You try to ask someone, and people
and it's funny because it's not anything different from when I normally drive.
Well, you don't speak French.
It's just a longer amount of time. So I'll like listen to podcasts or music, and then I'll like get out somewhere and walk around for a couple hours. I ended up getting
back on the train, and that was it.
Just kind of taking the surroundings and
went back and stayed at a
different things, or think about similar things in a way that I normally can't
in a small town outside of Paris, and I got this hotel room, and then I went down to this bar in the hotel, and I just sat at the bar and started drinking, and these guys started talking to me, but they didn't speak English. I didn't speak French, and it was like we're trying to communicate, and they had no idea what I was trying to say. I had no idea what they were saying, but they kept buying me beer, and I said, "This is okay." And it was a total failure of communication. I kind of thought the guy was he wanted me to go somewhere with him, like, and I was starting to think, this sounds a little dodgy. I don't
being like motivated enough to look my friends' phone numbers up in the phone book because I didn't.
Eventually, I just said, "See you guys," and that was it.
We only hung out at school.
And then I got back on the train and I went to
each one of
Switzerland.
And try and convince them to hang out. Took like 3 tries and then finally got someone. Convinced them to like come by. I remember my one friend was like so appalled that I called their home. They talked about it to like the rest of the school year that I like called their home one time and asked them to hang out. And they were like, no.
Something. What about it? Yeah. I don't know why. I have two siblings. I'm the oldest. But yeah, I usually explain it like, so me and my sister are really close in age. We're like, I think a year and 5 months apart. So pretty close. And then my brother is 4 years, just over 4 years younger than me. And so like, I remember him being a really, really little baby. And me and my sister were so close. We just spent all our time together. The way I usually explain it is that me and my sister were really close until my brother got older and like started developing a personality. And then it just turned out that my sister and him got along a lot better. They just liked doing the same things. And so I just ended up spending all my time alone. Not all of it, but a lot of it alone. And they were the ones that were like, I don't know, they liked playing video games more than I did. And yeah, I think probably it wasn't just them. It was probably me also looking to be alone a lot. But yeah, when I was a kid, I felt alone a lot at home and at school. And even when I was with my friends, I didn't really feel like
Yeah, not for long.
I was really a part of
I had an apartment in Edmonton, and I
anything.
lived alone for. It was actually when after I came back from traveling to
I don't know why a kid would feel
Southeast
that.
Asia, and I had roommates before, and they had in this house in Edmonton, and they had a full house. So I said, I'll just get an apartment, and so I lived in the apartment for a few months, and then one of their roommates moved out, and so they wanted me to move back in. And I didn't want to initially. I kind of liked living alone, and then finally they convinced me. Said, we need someone to help pay the rent." So I think I only ended up
I guess it was
living alone
summer
for
holidays.
6 months.
Yeah.
I remember when I moved
I didn't mind
to
it. It was
I moved
okay.
school
And I was right in
to,
downtown Edmonton.
in
Half
the
the
middle
time,
of middle school.
You are not able to
middle
talk
school.
to
right
me.
in, what's it called?
Well, majority of
uh,
the time.
There's lots going
Because
on.
Went
you
from,
can't
like,
just, I have
the
to,
people that I'd grown up with
my fingers in your mouth, you're not
to
able to
middle
Cool
school.
eyes.
But
That
your
was
mouth
fun.
is always
You
free
just,
at the
like,
hairdresser, I think.
cling on to any relationship that you can like get to.
Mm.
You're like I remember first getting there, like trying to decide who I should pick or whatever. You know,
Like right
who's
in the
gonna be my
mouth,
new
yeah.
like crowd.
Mhm.
And then my expectations getting lowered and lowered
And
until
I guess it
I just, like,
depends.
feel
We
anyone
mostly
will do.
talk about teeth. I feel like a hairdresser, it's more cash.
Yeah,
you're
like
not
in high
there
school and stuff.
for your health. You're
By
there
that point, I
for,
think
like a haircut, like a style.
I just
I
sort of
guess.
carved out an alone person niche for myself,
Maybe the price.
where I felt comfortable. And that worked for me. You know, when you're a teenager, you're like trying to cobble together an identity. That's what I did. And yeah, by that point, I think it was just sort of like it was like a self-propelling thing by then.
Of spending alone time. Like most of my days are just by myself. And in those cases, it's kind of nice. Like I honestly don't think much of it. Yeah, and I like doing things on like by myself,
the whole
like
entire time.
Errands or whatever. It's just
The
like,
other
oh,
French
I'll
immersion
go do that.
students. So I was around the
And
same
it's funny
people
because
from, like,
sometimes
age
there's
5
like days
to 18.
where, especially on weekends, where
Because
I
there was
won't
like some
talk
familiarity there.
for 2
Even though I never
days in a
felt
row
close to
because
anyone.
I've just been on my own
And I
and I
never-
don't even realize it until I
Definitely
have
never
to say
understood group
something and then
dynamics.
get that croak.
And I definitely never felt
Yeah.
like accepted
Yeah.
or seen
And even like living in Edmonton, like I always had roommates, but
for most people.
I mostly just went to school.
But yeah, going to university after that, it
Um,
was like, and now no one knows.
I was
each
like-
other.
especially in the second place,
You're
I
alone
lived,
and no
I
Tried to
one
was-
hang
knows.
out with my
I
friends
would
outside of school.
basically
Our schedule,
I would
hang out
even
with
though
my
we all
one
had the same
roommate for a fair
schedule, like
bit,
was
but
pretty
I would
hard.
spend
I remember
lots
that
of
being
time
sort
just
of
going
weird
on
and hard
too
big
much
because I
walks.
didn't
outside of
know.
school.
And
Since
I've
I've been,
always
like,
gone on big long
performing,
walks on my
We
own.
goofed
I guess
around a lot
my
in
identity
university, so
for
it didn't
the
feel
people I'd
Or
like
I'd just be like
performing
working on
for.
my stuff on my
I-
own.
I
And
started this
honestly,
in
I
just-
thought
it
about
was-
quitting my job.
Yeah,
I was
Or
never
I
just had, like,
opposed
went
to
on
hanging
training.
out
So
with
it's
other
like,
people,
okay,
but
so I'm
it was
back
just
to
something
being
about
a
Yeah, 2
solo
weeks left
person.
on
and
this
then
month.
back to sleep.
So I was
I'm
Nice.
actually really
just
alone now.
stay there for a
So I
month.
do that every day, every
Um,
morning.
study.
So I wasn't
Um,
working,
Whatever else.
and I was just
You know, I mean,
in
this is for
uh,
trying
Yeah, and I spent a
Yes,
lot
there's
of
always a
some
lot of
moderately
other
big
people on the
city
train.
by myself.
The sense of what I was doing for a little
I
while.
remember one
Same
time I
person's
was
basement.
It's like a new level.
And I remember I had a roommate like
in
the
my
weeks
last year. I
before,
decided to live north
and then
side
they
because all
moved
my
out
friends lived north side, and that was
right
the only
before.
reason. But it
Yeah,
just
it's kind of
happened.
rough actually.
and I
So I
hated
did
my
go on the train
roommate.
with my friends
Like I
constantly.
didn't ever want to
Yeah,
talk
Me
to
and
him.
my friend were just on our way
And
home.
then after
there's
like
a
a week
guy-
of being on my own, I like
Not
really wanted
like
to talk
directly
to him.
across from us, but like in the other seat across from us. And he was looked like he was nodding off, like he was falling asleep. And eventually he did fall asleep, and he like fell like flat on the floor in the middle of the aisle. And he looked like he hit himself pretty hard, and like he woke himself up and like got back in his seat. But it was kind of funny.
I've been like more or less single for a long time. So in that respect, because I don't know, I like doing things by myself, but at the same time, it would be really nice to have someone to do those things with, right? And yeah, probably the most lonely I feel as an adult is whenever I go through a breakup. Because like I don't want to see people, and it's like it's the cliche of like the person you want to actually see you can't, which is a torturous mindset, but some good comes from that too. Yeah. So mostly positive, but I don't know, the negatives are rough negatives.
Like I remember that basement being dark and cold and empty. And also like not mine too. I think loneliness is easier when you're not in a space it's easier for loneliness to exist when you're not in a space that is familiar. For me, anyway.
I remember when I wasn't in school, my sisters were mostly my friends. Like I only like hung out with them. I didn't really have friends before kindergarten. I think that's pretty common. So I remember in kindergarten, I was like really, really excited to get a friend because my little sister actually had a friend before I did, which is so sad. And I like got into kindergarten, went up to like the first girl that I saw, and I was like, "Hey, can we be friends?" And then we were friends ever since. Yeah, her name is Cassie. I think so. I mean, I think she was shy enough that she like needed someone to do that because she's a very shy person. I think we definitely have like different opinions and like we're pretty different people. But I mean, we're still friends to this day. Like I still consider someone close to me.
I worked every summer on the fruit farm across the street, and I kind of got. I told you about him. The farmer. He was deaf, and he couldn't speak. Right. We kind of communicated, but he would just sort of point at things. But I was kind of his don't know what you call it, like farmhand helper. And so for a lot of the summer, it was just me out there. And he'd send me out to do stuff. So I'd spend all day out there out in the field by myself doing really shitty jobs. Like I had to pull weeds around peach trees. That was like one of my hated jobs. Like he'd show me, you're gonna have to pull all the weeds around every peach tree. And you go in like there's an orchard of thousands of trees, right? And it was just me out there. What a shitty job. And then there was another job he had me. I finished that. It's like right now we're going to pull the suckers off the grapes, like the bottom of the grapes. There's these suckers that come up from the around the base of the plant, like where the roots are, and you got to pull off. Well, I kind of thought it was a waste of time. It wasn't really necessary, but he liked everything to be really clean and neat. So I'd say, okay, now you're gonna do all the grapes. So he'd send me out there, and I'd just be out there for like days by myself, pulling the suckers off the grapes. It was the worst job. And it was hot as hell because it was Southern Ontario. It was really humid.
It was fine. When I was younger, I was really driven. Like I always had a sense of purpose. That I think probably grew out of me being alone a lot. I didn't have anyone else to propel me forward, or I didn't anyone else's plans to. Yeah, like it was just me. It was always just me. So I was always the one making the rules. So I guess in a sense, I was probably like well set up for that university transition that I know is really hard for some people who go to school for like social reasons more than learning reasons, I guess. Yeah.
I first moved to
Yeah, and then I
Edmonton,
went to France.
and I wasn't a big fan of living in Edmonton.
And that was like
and my
being
roommates
even,
were great,
more.
but
That was
I just
I think that was like
feel
probably
like I was
actually
in the
being
right
alone.
place, and my significant
Whereas
other was
before I was
somewhat
just sort of
far,
like
far off,
the
and
sense that I was
couldn't
alone.
see her or talk to her
I
whenever.
wasn't, like my family was around.
So
and I still
it
did
just
have my
kind of
friends.
it felt like a lot of
But yeah,
filling
in a different
time.
country, there's like
and I
literally
got
no
into,
one
like,
who knows
deep
anyone even
depression,
remotely
and
like
that
you.
was not okay.
No one even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
No one.
second would have been like when we broke up, and that was a weird one because it was rough.
And I was
for
so
a
lonely,
bit,
it felt like an illness.
like a few months. But then again, like I was seeking
I
to
remember.
like be around people at that point, and I think that made a very big
I remember
character shift
feeling
where,
like
I said, like
realizing
I was all of a sudden like really okay with being
actually
on my
that
own,
loneliness.
but I
can
was
kill
also
you.
way more open
Um,
to just, oh, let's go hang out with who knows
Make you
who,
sick.
or like I'd help
um,
acquaintances move, and I feel like I just became a much more generous person.
yeah,
So
and
that
a lot
one
of
had
people
a much more
think,
positive outcome.
die of it. Actually, it took a long time to recover from that.
I mean, I've had lots of times where I don't talk.
I don't know if I would call it
really at all.
not so much loneliness as just
Well, 2 times, I guess.
lacking human contact. It's kind of like maybe that's
First time I was in Halifax in this place, I had like 9 roommates.
so you end up
It's like
talking to
students.
strangers. Like,
It's like a hallway with a kitchen
I
and
was
like
doing my
ton of
virtual
doors,
Berkey. I
one
started talking to
bathroom.
this couple when I was resting.
and
I was telling them my
was too scared
story
to talk
about the
to anyone
Berkey, and I was
there.
like,
Also, I just
they really care.
heard their
It's this guy.
conversations and like
They're-
talk to me.
they were, I thought they were impressed. I mean, they thought, wow, that's amazing. What do you do? Oh shit, you ski 55 kilometers. So anyway,
Well, you're hiding from them after a little while
I
because
was like,
you
I just need someone to talk to.
you like procrastinated too long to like talk to them. You know, like you didn't go out and
I
talk to
think
them
it's
on the
also,
first day,
it's also,
and then it's been like 3
like
days.
partly
before
the
talk to them,
retirement,
and
of
then a
course,
week
is
and talk to them.
you
And
sort of
then
lose
it's
a lot
too
of your
late.
social
Talk to
contacts
them.
because work. I mean, the work that I was
So
doing,
you are
I led a team of
just like
7
hiding,
or 8 people,
listening,
and
and like waiting until
we're
they're
always
out of the kitchen
interacting
or
and
like
doing stuff. And
you like peek around the
then-
corner to see if they're there. And if they're there, you like
and then
run
that's
and
that's
hide.
gone, right? It's just totally like you go from stuff happening to zero, like just total shut it off, shut it down. You're never going to talk to these people again.
They didn't like
So
me
it's
because
and that's a bit of an
I
adjustment.
never talked to any of them.
I think they well,
Like they always
it's-
thought that like if someone did something,
Well,
like,
and
if
then on
someone
top of
stole
that, the
someone's food, or
pandemic,
if like
so,
there was a mess, they just assumed
like
it was
if you
me,
don't have a
even
lot
though
of
it's
friends
never me.
outside of work or people you do stuff with, you kind of got to make
because they didn't know me, and I'm like,
make those
yeah.
connections. So
Yeah.
like I started doing that and just through things like clubs,
I was just like too busy and like, yeah. Yeah, and I was just like so like it was just so much new stuff going on and so much going on that I was almost never home anyways, and like had no urge to talk to them.
I think the worst
think,
part
in the
is
beginning,
other
it's
also
people
now-
At the time, I don't
tricky.
think I really
Um,
fully
with the internet,
thought
my
that there was
mind-
anything
I
wrong
also
with me,
had this
just like
feeling when I
we
first
we
started
just have like so
school.
much
I
I
media
didn't
that
feel
it's
well.
like
When
it
I was
feels like
first
partially a
started
but when
creature.
you're in
people.
I'm
such
half
an
whimsical and
is
half
that
like situation,
a
Like
creature.
I
I'm
my
not
favorite
very
TV
Um,
shows are
so at the time, I'm like,
And
this
needles
is
to
fine.
clean
I'm
the
gonna
straw.
follow
coping
the
mechanisms have always been a
Essentially,
tricky
Like I
thing.
knew one girl
So,
in
At the beginning of
with like
those
like one of my
other
stints,
seniors,
and then I
like
came
very
back
above
from
me,
France,
like
today,
maybe a year
and
above me.
skiing.
I think a lot of TV
battle
shows are
Like,
framed
not
It was
to
different. It was a
give in
time
to
I
certain
do
I
I
would
influences.
refuse to
friends.
hang out with
You
her.
just go watch
So
them.
the
But
first
after a
2
while,
weeks,
I
I was
Or,
like
I mean, a
so
more
really
stressed out
enjoy
about
it.
trying to get
or
into a
a different
friend group.
that
example
happened.
is like
And again,
I
I
was like,
do
I was
Pretty
like,
Florida.
I need
hardcore,
Today I
and
see
also
the
I
I
was still
need
extra
like
to
freedom
feeling
of just,
I don't
oh,
want to
emotionally
go
at
through
this
this
point
I want to do
with
this,
friends.
so
or
we're just
whatever.
going to go
I
do
felt
this.
like I
So-
had
And
Stockholm syndrome for an entire
at
almost
semester.
become
first,
strategic. Like you have to like
in
plan
the
out
first
that
big
videos,
for
if you
okay,
watch so many
like,
of the
I
entire
it
videos,
took a
invite
long
living
time for me to
situation
realize
or
that I was
life.
who's
or
gonna
live
get
okay
me,
doing
who's
things that
gonna
I
like
would
He was
me.
behind me
chat
for a while.
normally
And I
do with
thought,
I
other
think it goes
people
well.
by myself.
It's like
I just
rent a friend.
remember
Because I
He
was
passed me.
seeing
I,
these
I
three girls
missed
who all knew
or
each other
go
for
how
for dinner,
fun.
lonely I was.
But I
or
did
go
Because then we
to
tried to
drink,
be together.
I still made it to
or
the
go
top.
to a
Uh,
And there was
concert.
a PR
Because even though it was
and,
really
like,
Once I
hard,
actually, like, I
meeting each other
remember
and
really
doing some
the
brutal.
fun
first
stuff.
watch
big
And I was
event I
like,
did by
holy shit,
myself
fucking, I
was
it
want
going
also
to a
gave me
concert.
things,
I want
And, you know, I
BK.
tried to
the
get
world
people,
was
but I'm just
hard,
like, you know what?
done that
Fuck it.
and I was
I really
living
want to
there.
see the show. I'm going to
Because
go
it,
see
I
the
had
Just
show.
don't
really
have
had that before,
And-
that kind of friendship.
Yeah. And
best
it was
time.
great. Like, I
like
just,
social
you know,
The
it
name
was
of
awkward at
it
first. I was kind of
normally
sitting in
have
my
or
seat
signifies a
and
lot.
listening
Guys-
to,
It was just
but
like
then
this
I was just
person
singing
Like, gave
had
me
this
the-
along,
something
and
things
funny and
happening
they
great.
want to share it with
And
you, or they like
keep
going.
found
Otherwise, I
something
probably
that
would
I
have
reminds
just
stopped
like
them of
quietly
you.
reminisced,
Your brain
and I was
changes.
more open
It's kind of
And I
special
started to
though. I mean,
experience
to
the
maybe I'm
world
missing a lot in it,
which
just like
was
so much more
interesting.
vividly. Like colors were more vivid to me. Sounds, songs, people talking to me. They were more vivid and they hit me harder. Like every single thing. It was excruciating, but it was also extremely beautiful.
Mostly it was like the playing of roles that made me feel lonely. It felt like even when I was around people, I was lonely. I always felt like I was putting on a persona that wasn't always honest.
I think sometimes it's hard to identify loneliness. Sometimes you just feel weird or quiet. You don't realize that's what loneliness is.
I think the worst part is that you can see other people who aren't lonely. It almost becomes strategic. Like you have to like plan out. You gotta feel like, okay, I need to sit by someone who's gonna get me, who's gonna like me.
It felt like such an intimate experience of the world. It was just me and no one else, like me and the whole world. So I ended up like overstimulated and over caffeinated and like really alone.
Maybe when I'm out skiing, or if I'm just home alone, like we kind of alternate. Sometimes I just went to Red Deer and Sioux stayed here, so I go home for 3 or 4 days, maybe longer, sometimes a week, or just hang out here by myself. And it's not, I don't know if it's really lonely, but it's sort of like, okay, well, what am I going to do? I'm sort of sitting around by myself and probably watch too much Netflix, or I don't know if I would call it, not so much loneliness as just lacking human contact.
I love spending alone time. Like most of my days are just by myself. In the beginning, it's really tricky. It's a battle not to give in to certain vices. But after a while, I just really enjoy it. It took a long time for me to realize that it was okay to do things I wanted to do that I would normally do with other people by myself. Like go to a movie or go out for dinner or go for a drink or go to a concert.
With the internet, we just have so much media that we consume that feels like being with people. My favorite TV shows are just shows where people are essentially hanging out and doing nothing. I think a lot of TV shows are framed as like, a group of your friends and you're just like watching and listening to them.
I guess like I was lonely physically, but like still like was getting my social needs met because I was like really into those like old school like avatar sim games where you like just communicate with other people.
So you end up talking to strangers. Like, I started talking to this couple when I was resting, and I was telling them my story about the Berkey, and I was thinking, do they really care against this guy? they were. I thought they were impressed. I mean, they thought, "Wow, that's amazing! What do you do? Oh shit, you skied 55 kilometers." So anyway, I was like, I just need someone to talk to.
And I was so lonely, it felt like an illness. I remember feeling like realizing that loneliness can kill you, can make you sick. Yeah, and a lot of people I think die of it.
I was all of a sudden like really okay with being on my own, but I was also way more open to just, oh, let's go hang out with who knows who, or like I'd help acquaintances move. I just became a much more generous person.
When you're lonely, it's easier to find things interesting. Being able to read several hundred pages in a day when I can normally only read maybe 50 pages in a day. You're just so either bored or lonely. You like stop reading for a bit and then you're like, oh, this is unbearable. And then you start reading again. How your ears adjust or your eyes adjust when there's almost no light. then your pupils are really big and they take in a lot of light. Everything becomes more interesting when you're lonely or bored. If you ever just lied on the floor and look up at the ceiling.
I guess like I said, those like jealousy, like you really just you see other people have friendships and you're like, fuck, I just want that. You get jealous. I know it kind of sucks sometimes. You just have to spend a lot of time with yourself and you have to like learn to like yourself. It's just kind of sad.
Like partly the retirement, of course, is you sort of lose a lot of your social contacts because work. I mean, the work that I was doing, I led a team of 7 or 8 people, and we were always interacting and doing stuff, and then that's gone, right? It's just totally like you go from stuff happening to zero, like just total shut it off, shut it down. We're never going to talk to these people again. So it's and that's a bit of an adjustment.
I missed how lonely I was. Like I missed it. Because even though it was really hard, like really brutal, it also gave me things. The world was more when I was living there. And I think like your brain changes. And I started to experience the world just like so much more vividly. Like colors were more vivid to me. Sounds, songs, people talking to me, they were more vivid and they hit me harder, like every single thing. It was excruciating, but it was also extremely beautiful.
Like anything, it does have the two sides, right? And there's no reason for loneliness to be a negatively connotated thing. It's very easy for it to spiral to that, but there's so many positives of the prime one being self-reflection.
So like these other feelings wouldn't have been as intense when you're alone. And that's always funny too, when you like go from being alone a lot into like a social situation, and then all those other things just drop away sometimes. Maybe you're just like so miserable and then you go into the social situation and then everything's fine.
Like I just needed so much. I guess I needed someone to talk to, and I needed interaction. And I just like needed so much that there's just no way that any interaction I had with someone could ever fulfill that need. And I just find it so cruel that like when you need human connection the most, like when you're the most deprived, it's when you're least able to actually get it, to have like a nice, healthy interaction with someone. I couldn't make myself be okay. I couldn't make myself be normal. Like it made me ill. And I still miss it.
Also, I think when I'm by myself, I don't take the time to do things or to enjoy things. That's one of the things that is really good for me about socializing, is that I will take the time to enjoy things instead of always be like working on something or like always on like a mission to do something.
When you're really stressed out like that, it kind of feels lonely. It feels like it's just you against this insurmountable problem. I mean, like it's hard to know loneliness unless you know someone who is like currently lonely. Like lonely. I guess you could like see people and like assume they're lonely, but you might not really know.
Like if you don't have a lot of friends outside of work or people you do stuff with, you kind of got to make those connections. So like I started doing that and just through things like clubs. Like I joined this Elbow Valley Cycle Club and I started doing some of their rides.
And I remember she said that she felt like she was having these experiences that just would never have happened if she wasn't lonely. Like it was like she would connect, especially with other people who were lonely, and just have these moments that just never would have happened otherwise. Like you can pick out things in the world that are because of loneliness. It's just there.